I'm your host, Juliette Clark. And before we get started with our fabulous guest today, I want to remind you to go grab your copy, your free subscription of Breakthrough Author Magazine. You can find that at www.breakthroughauthormagazine.com. We are switching up our focus in 2024, and our theme for this year is going to be ditching the middleman, strategies to bypass book distribution fees. And for those of you who don't know about book distribution fees, anytime you have your book listed on a distributor, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any of those, they take a 55% cut right off the top of your retail price. And once the book cost to print is pulled out of that as well, authors are left with very, very little product. So our focus next year is really, how do you sell these books on your own and ditch that 55%? And the other advantage of doing that is that you get to connect with your readers in a much more authentic way and start relationships, which can lead you to be in a space to nurture into bigger products and services. So please go grab that subscription. I think you're going to be really happy with some of our new contributors next year. And one of them who's going to contribute sort of at large, not every month, but every now and then, is Aleya Harris. And Aleya is someone who, if you continue to mimic the journeys of your peers and idols, you will fade further into the sea of sameness. That is so true. Aleya Harris uses energy healing, business strategy, and her energetic personality to help you rediscover your passion, tell your radically authentic story, and stand out from the crowd. She is the CEO of the Evolution Collective, Inc., host of the Radical Rebirth Retreat, LLC, host of the award-winning Flourishing Entrepreneur podcast, and a Virgo with an Aries moon and an Aquarius rising. I have no idea about the last part. I just know I'm a Pisces that, I don't know, if you met me in person, I probably am not really wavy gravy like most Pisces. So stay tuned for our interview with Aleya. Aleya, welcome. It's great to have you today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. We've already been chatting up and laughing so much. It's like, finally, just press record. Let's get into it.
I know. I just want to make everybody feel comfortable. And I actually told you a story, and we're going to talk a little bit about storytelling today. So on a scale of 1 to 10, would you hire me after I told you that story? No.
Yes. 100. It's at a 100, 100%. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
Yeah. So I really wanted to talk to you today about authors, and when they're out marketing their book, they're speaking, you're a well-established speaker, translating that into a storytelling journey that helps them sell the book instead of just buy my book.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's the hardest part. You know, I get on stage in front of hundreds or thousands of people, right? Webinars, in person, all over the things. And I love it. And I actually, honest to God, do not get stage fright. And a couple of weeks ago, I was at this small retreat before the conference, and I was invited because I was a speaker to participate in the retreat. And there were maybe 20 women there in the room. And they were going around the room, and everybody had to stand up and introduce themselves and say, it didn't say something personal, but that's like what we were doing. And I was so nervous. My hands were shaking. 20 women in the room, because it wasn't about my content. It was about me. All of a sudden, it was about me. I was up on this, not even a stage. I was sitting down. I had to stand up for talk for like 20 seconds and sit back down. And it was then that I laughed at myself, because I said, this is the stage fright that everybody keeps talking about that they have. And I think that for authors and speakers, I am not alone in that. It's very easy because you believe in what you're talking about. You're an expert in it. You have all of the credentials. But somehow when we translate that to ourselves, we all of a sudden feel like we are not the expert in ourselves and we shouldn't be talking about it. Or we get confused as to, well, what story am I supposed to tell? We've rehearsed our topics, we've rehearsed our book, we've written books, right? So inside of the book, all of our thoughts are there, laid out, edited, published in this beautiful order. And all we really need to do from the stage or when we're selling it is take, here's an excerpt, whatever. It's all thought out. But as soon as we have to then apply that to ourselves, the person that people are really buying, they're buying the book, but they're really buying the piece of you because they can't, hold you captive in their basement, right? So they're trying to buy a piece of you and we don't know what to say. We don't know what to say. So there's a couple of things that I want to talk about when it comes to figuring out, as opposed to just being like, here, buy my book. It's like selling the you, and people buy your book as an extension of you because they just can't get enough.
Right.
That's not going to work for you.
Yeah, no, that totally works for me. And I love that you don't get stage fright. I do for about 30 seconds and then I'll snap out of it. But I have this really annoying thing from advertising when I talk, that my slides are kind of there so that I know where my place is, because I will literally, when you pitch an advertising, you take questions in the middle of your pitch. So I will actually take questions in the middle of my talk, and it's really annoying to people, but I've got that 30 seconds where like my legs are shaking and then all of a sudden it clicks in.
It clicks in. I just am excited. It's like a little puppy on stage, like ready to like see them transform, because people go through some things in my talks. They have like these emotional roller coasters. We're crying, we're laughing. It's a whole thing. You might be getting up, you might be chanting. It's a whole thing, Juliet. It's a whole thing. So I get excited about that. For me, it's almost like putting on a show. Way back in the day, I did tap and ballet and jazz for 10 years. I played the violin, I played the piano. And I think a lot of that comes into the way that I approach being on stage.
Wait. You played the violin? Were you good at it? I played the violin.
Good. I was very
I sucked. My parents used to go
I
to
was not as
nights.
great at the piano, but I was great at the violin.
My parents the only time I was allowed to practice was when they were at date night, because I was so bad they didn't want to hear. So congratulations on being good at it.
That's very encouraging. I was good at it, but it felt like a lot of pressure. So I didn't continue it because it was more about like, how do I get to the next thing, the next level. So was the piano, but dance was more expressive for me. But still, I like dancing now, but I don't need to be on anybody's stage doing the Nutcracker Suite or anything. I'd rather use my voice, but it taught me how to take up space on a stage, how to be engaging. And so because when I get on stage, it's like second nature, and I can move through any type of nerves and just be excited. The only time that I get nervous is when I'm like, it's usually because the event organizer has kind of like hyped up the audience in such a way that makes me be like, are they going to even understand what I'm talking about? Like, oh no. There's one that was like, oh no, they're all accountants. They're really dry. They're not going to give you any feedback. It'll be blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, oh my God, what am I getting myself into? They were up there. I was like, of course it's me. They were laughing. We're having a good time. They were raising their hands. They were engaged. They were doing all kinds of stuff. So that's the only time I get a little bit of nervous, when I start feeding into other people's hype. Anyways, I digress. About the people. So for me, when you're trying to sell a book and you are the person selling the book, or you are the person pitching yourself as a speaker, or pitching yourself even for a podcast, you need to go a little bit deeper. You probably did some kind of deep work in figuring things out to write the book, depending on what the book is. But there's also some work that you need to do to realize what the core of your story is. Your story, not your book story, but your story. Underneath all the shoulds and the coulds, and I did that, and I'm blaming myself for this, and I'm judging myself for that, there is a core of you. And that is the story that people want to hear. The core of me is all about my self-created tagline is the spark for your spark. What I do really well is channel energy from the universe, from God, for whoever you want to say, and I channel it into people. When people leave me, they're more lit up than anybody else. I didn't really realize that until after I had my baby. She's 11 months at this time of this recording. And I had very severe postpartum depression and anxiety. I'd be crying all the time, but of course I'm also type A. So I'm crying, then walking out onto a stage, right? That's what I was thinking, but that's where we're at, right? And even at that, people would walk up to me, oh my God, I love your energy. You're so full of vibrancy. You're so full of joy. You're so full of, and that in that moment was when I realized that it had nothing to do with me, because Aleya Harris, this body was sad and depressed and anxious and feeling battered down. That was when I got into the core of me. It's like, oh, that's my purpose, is to be the light bearer. I'm not the light generator. I'm just the light bearer, bringing it to other people. But in order to get there, I had to uncover, well, who do you think you are? How can you be a light bearer? What does that even mean? Are people going to understand you? Remember that one time when you weren't that light bearer? Doesn't that prove that you aren't? Right? All that stuff that's on top of the core of who I am. But when you've gotten there down to the core story, when it just goes, oh, and for me, I look around at my life, I'm like, well, yeah, that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm on this path. That's why I open up this business. That's why I tell these stories. That's the feedback that other people get from me. I joke around with people that hire me to be a speaker that I promise all my testimonials are real and that I didn't just chat GPT them, because almost all of them say, we love your energy. Oh, we love Aleya. She had such great energy. Oh, we love Aleya. This energy of the presentation was great. Her enthusiasm is contagious. And like, it literally sounds that I went and did these and made fake names, because they all are saying the same thing. But why are they saying that? Because that is related to the core of who I am. Energy, it's that light, it's that vibrancy, it's that joy, that connection that I bring to people. And I have to own that. So, dear listener, what are you not owning, right? What are people telling you that you're brushing off? What are all of the shoulds and the judgments preventing you from owning? Because if you can own that core of you, you will be able to feel just as confident telling your story, which is going to be very different than everybody else's, just the same way that you are really confident owning the content in that book. The difference is the book's edited. The book, all the other people have their fingers on usually before it's in print.
Right.
People don't have their fingers all on you, usually in the best of ways, before you present this core of you. It feels very vulnerable. It feels like you're looking for validation. As opposed to looking for validation externally, what I encourage you to do is to look for validation internally, using your body as a guide. So in the storytelling process, the story of you get down to the core of who you are by doing forgiveness work, journaling, freeform writing, removing all the shoulds, just paying attention to the signs of where you're on and off course. And then you start to say, okay, I feel like I know what that is, but am I right or not? You already know what right feels like. So Juliet, if I told you, imagine that I wrote a check right now. I got a big client and I am just super big fan of you, Juliet. And I wrote you a check for $100,000 and sent it to you in the mail. And you're looking at it right now. How would you feel?
Like I won the lottery.
Like you won the lottery. Where do you feel that in your body?
Oh gosh, I would feel that in my smile.
In your smile, your face would light up.
Light up, yeah.
In their face, in their chest, you feel it somewhere, right? Now, Juliet, not to be a downer, but what if I told you, Juliet, do you have a pet?
I don't.
Juliet, I know you live on a golf course. Juliet, I'm a doctor and I hate to break it to you, but the way that your thumb is working, you'll never be able to golf again.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Where do you feel that?
In my thumb? No.
Oh my God, Juliet, work with me here, people, work with me.
No, I would be sad. I would be very sad. I would probably feel in the pit of my stomach, like, oh, that's something I love to do. Yeah.
That's a no. That's a oh no feeling, right? So your body physically knows what yes feels like and physically knows what no feels like. So now and you can run a couple scenarios on you. I love using this scenario of, well, if a former client sent you a Louis Vuitton purse as a thank you gift, where would you feel that? I said, all over, baby, all over.
It's
Because I'm rubbing it all over myself.
It's just everywhere. I feel it everywhere. I'm glowing, right?
There you go.
You run different scenarios on those types of situations. So you feel like, what does no and what does yes feel like? Or if you can't run those scenarios on yourself, watch a movie that really makes you laugh and a movie that really makes you cry. And feel physically, somatically where that is in your body. Then, once you got down what a yes feels like, what a no feels like, talk to yourself about the core of yourself. Where do you feel that? Does it feel like, yeah, that is right. That is me. There are lots of iterations I went through before I was like, I'm the spark for your spark, or have this energy thing going. I don't remember what they were, but they were not it. It was just, I didn't feel nothing. It was just like a pang, like a bong, like that's not it. Or like I used to have when I was younger, a sidekick as a type of phone. And every time it would die, it made a sound when it died. Wah, 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 what's the sound? And I was kind of like, when it wasn't a no, it wasn't a yes. It was just like a wah, 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 wah. That's also good feedback. When you light up, when you tell yourself the core of who you are, and it's not about the pretty wording, but you're like, no, what I'm here to do is truly to help people connect with this hypothetical, connect with their grief to release it. What I'm truly here to help people do is to realize their potential through dance. What I'm truly here to help people do is to understand that their biggest weaknesses can be their biggest strengths. I've seen that, I feel that, and you feel the, oh yes, feeling, you got it. You don't need an editor to tell you that you got it. You don't need reviews to tell you that you got it. You will know. And then you'll begin to connect the dots in your past and then help you kind of navigate your future on how you're going to walk this out now that you've gotten more accustomed to being in touch with the core of who you are.
For a lot of people, that's a really scary thing. So I get a yes, yay, that's my story. But I'm sort of ashamed to tell that story. Or like, what do you recommend? Because it sounds like if you really want to tell your story, you've got some work to do.
If you really want to tell your story, you do have some work to do. I didn't say, well, I guess I probably should have started this and be like, I didn't say it was easy. Just like how writing the book wasn't easy. So why should this part be easy?
Exactly. And I would actually say this is probably harder, because if you're working with a book developer, that book developer is guiding you through, you've got too much story or you need to elaborate. This is something that truly just comes from you, and you're communicating it not in a book where you'll never see a reaction, but in front of people who are going to react.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so one, going back to what you're saying about the guidance, you don't want validation, but if you do need guidance, I encourage you to get a coach, get a life coach, right? That's kind of like, this is their jam. They can help guide you closer to the core of yourself. Or shameless plug, I do bioenergetic business coaching. Come holler at me. But once you talk about, like you're saying, like you have this and now what do I say? Then you start getting some structure to this thing. I like to talk about, you get it real, like the real core of who you are, you get clear on what that is, and then you get connected. And the getting connected piece, I like to use the story brand framework for that. I'm a story brand certified guide. The story brand framework is really just the hero's journey simplified and put into different contexts. There's a hero who has something that they want. They have a problem. They meet a guide who has a plan that calls them into action, that helps lead them to success and avoid failure. In that framework, you can pull out certain pieces of that to communicate the core of who you are into a nifty little one-liner. It's the problem that you solve, the way that you solve it, and then the results that you get, the success that you help other people get at the end. Because remember, it's one, like, let's say I wrongly came up with that my core of who I am was to paint watercolor kittens for a living, like, right? The core of who I am, my soul is painted in watercolor kittens. I don't know about you, but there's a very small watercolor kitten community, right? Like, I don't imagine it's like a large overarching human theme here, right? Like,
Aleya, I am a painter, so I will find one for you.
please do. Please do. But if that is the thing, you're just like, okay, well, that's what that's who I am. But if you're not matching it to a problem that needs to be solved, then no one's listening to you. And I would also posit that that's probably not the core of who you are, because the beautiful thing about cores, this is getting a little bit grander of a thought, but the beautiful thing about the core of who you are is you're given the gift and the purpose of who you are, because human beings are meant to be in communication and community with other people. So once you get to your core, it's automatically you getting down to something that someone else needs or wants. That's why it's within you in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're stuck at the watercolor kitten level, keep going. You haven't finished step one yet. But let's say that you have gotten down to your core and you're like, let's talk about at the core of me, I am an alchemist. I really do transformation well. People that believe that they can't do something and I help them flourish beyond their wildest imagination. Like, let's say that is, you are a people and a pain alchemist. That is your jam. And I've known people like that, and they're very powerful, right? That is your jam. Then you don't necessarily come out and say, you got some pain? I'm going to transform it for you, right? Maybe, I guess it depends on who you talk to, but then you talk about, okay, if I'm a people and a pain alchemist, what problem are people seeing and living in their lives every day that they can very easily understand that I can use to communicate with them? So let's say then you lean into people who've had seriously debilitating illness, for example, and the problem that you solve is helping those who have been seriously physically disabled overcome mental blocks to continue to flourish past their disability. And the way that that's the problem that you solve. And then the solution, the way that you solve it in the middle is through my 10-step proprietary program of blah, 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 blah. I don't know what your solution is, but it's a thing. You name it, the thing. I get results that are like people are able to transcend the physical and their mind suddenly becomes the strongest muscle in their body or something like that. I don't actually know if your brain is a muscle, but something like that, right? So you have your problem, your solution, your result. But it's not, a lot of times people go one way or the other. They have problems that nobody actually wants the solutions to, or they're solving problems that everybody wants to solve, but it's every time they solve it, they die inside because it's not connected to the core of who they are. So in order to build something that people gravitate toward, that people can feel, that people want to be around, you have to solve a problem that is connected to the core of who you are, that you are motivated to get up and solve it in new and innovative ways on a daily basis. And then most likely, spoiler alert, your book probably fits already really right into that, right? So when you're talking about this overarching problem, solution, result of you as a human telling that story, then you can say, and then to just get a snippet of the story where maybe I solve this part of it, or maybe I talk about this segment of it, come read my book.
Very nice, very nice. And to be able to communicate that on stage in a way that people can relate to as well. Yes. So I tend to be, and I love that I see more and more people doing this. I tend to try to make people laugh, because I feel like laughter opens up the, whatever defenses you have, laughter opens it up. And I know you and I are both part of the Dames. A lot of the ladies in the Dames have taken comedy lessons.
So, really? I didn't know that. That's funny.
Yeah. Oh yeah, a lot. I mean, Jen Koken's hilarious. Megan's hilarious too. But they've actually cultivated that because they understand that it lowers defenses. So now I have my story, but now I'm putting it out there in a way that's going to lower defenses, so people are open to purchasing whatever I have.
Absolutely. It's another way of making the connection. Another great way of telling story to make the connection is time and place. Setting the scene, right? You talk about this, especially with your fiction background, right? You can't just tell a story in the ether. You have to have people be able to visualize it, right? So if you're on stage, and let's say, I'm going back to this hypothetical, mythical person that I just made up, who is this alchemist of people with physical disabilities to help them really recapture their sense of freedom through mindset work. Let's say that that's who this person is. From stage, and maybe they had their own physical disability experience. Maybe from stage, they start off by saying, it was December 2019. And all I could feel was the blood running down my face and nothing else. I had no idea how I got there. I had no idea what had happened to me, but I had this feeling in the pit of my stomach that everything had gone wrong. If we fast forward to 3 days before, I was just a normal accountant going about my normal life and about to, marry my fiance of 5 years. And everything came to a crashing halt in that moment. I lost my job, I lost my fiance, and it was the lowest point of my life because I also lost my legs. And I thought that that was where my story ended. Until one day in rehab, I had a physical therapist come to me and say, your body is only part of your identity. What about the rest of the muscles that you need to work? And I began my journey to developing the mindset lessons I'm going to teach you today so that you can experience the freedom that has nothing to do with the physical that I experience. Right? I am listening to that man or woman talk for the next hour and a half if they want to talk, right? I'm interested. I saw the blood. I saw I guess it was a crash. I saw them in their normal life as an accountant. I saw this fiance. All of a sudden, you kind of hate the fiance for leaving the person, even though we don't really know what, right? You feel it. You're with them. You're in the story. You also notice there was a problem. There was a solution, and there is a result.
Exactly. Now, let me ask you this. A lot of times when we write marketing pieces, we have to stop our people and say, no one cares about your process. So
Yep.
how do you, because, they'll go into the story with, this is my front story. And then they get into the process, and the process is this big. Well, I do it in this proprietary way that blah, 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 blah. And people are falling asleep. So how much of that story should be the process, and how in depth should that process be? Because you could put people to sleep with that process that they don't really give a damn about. They just want the result.
So a process is only 3 steps. I don't care how many steps are in your process. I don't care if there's 25. I don't care if there's 25 million. There are 3 steps. And those 3 steps are how I engage with your process, the generalized work that happens in the middle, and what success looks like for me, the listener from that process. I don't care how many patents the process has. I don't care how many years it took you to develop. I don't care if your grandpapa was the originator of the process. Whatever you do is framed in the perspective of the person who is listening to you. So that proprietary process, notice in the very short version I gave a little earlier, it was like, this proprietary process, bloop, and that was it. Right? Because all I want you to focus on the problem and hook you in, that I have something that'll help you in the middle and what you'll get in the end. And when I'm on stage and I'm talking you through the process, I'm like, oh, now I'm going to tell you my mindset techniques. Those are all about me learning something, right? It might be that you're taking me through a sample of your process, but it's not about you describing the process. It's about you showing me how to use tools to help me out. You said no one cares about your process. I'm going to take it a step higher, Juliet. No one cares about you.
There you go. But you bring a really good point there too about the process, that you could actually take those 3 steps you just gave us as part of that sales process and set expectations for that person. Because, I mean, there's also a sales piece in going over that process as well. The other thing I was going to say, which slipped my mind because I'm old now, is that what you're describing there is what every author has to learn right off the bat, is show, not tell.
Show, not tell. Show, not tell. I'm going to get on a soapbox. Okay, you ready? It's a little one. I'm going to get on. Here we go. Boom. It's a small one. I'm on the soapbox. Most speakers are really bad, like really bad. I sit and I go to conferences and I'm just like, who the heck vetted you? It's not because I don't know what they're talking about. These are heads of huge companies. They have a lot of knowledge to share. It's because they are telling me stuff that I could have read in a blog post. Respect the craft. When you are using a certain medium, you have to abide by the rules of that medium. Speaking on a stage is a medium of information delivery, but it's not about just staring at someone on stage. It's about having an experience, making a connection. If I just wanted the information that someone had, I would just read their book, or I'd go and watch, a movie about it, or I'd go and read a blog post. But I am there in the room looking for connection. I don't care if I'm an accountant, an engineer, a doctor, or a meditation coach. I am sitting in front of you expecting you, speaker, to make a connection with me. And if you're not doing that from the stage, you are doing it wrong. So yes, it's about show, not tell, but it's so much broader than that. Every facial expression, every body movement, every voice modulation should be illustrating a point to draw me in and engage me into a connection with the story, with the person, and with the result that I'm purporting to give you from the stage. That is how you speak. Off of my soapbox now. Here we go.
There you go. There you go. Well, this has truly been a great gift of information. If we wanted to work with you, where would we find you?
It's not on that soapbox because I'm off of it now. So don't look for the soapbox.
That's so funny.
You can connect with me at aleyaharris.com, www.aleyaharris.com. Same thing on Instagram at Aleya Harris. And I'd love to speak with you. And then, I guess if you're fancy, I'm also on LinkedIn. Actually, I'm on LinkedIn a lot, but
if you're fancy,
you're fancy.
if you're employed. No,
you're employed. You're on LinkedIn. Actually, a lot of people on LinkedIn are not employed. That's why they're on LinkedIn.
That is very true, because I get those notices nearly daily. Are you hiring? No.
Are you hiring? No, I'm not.
No.
But I see that there must be a huge need out there.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. This was really fun.
Thank you, Juliet.